My name is Elsie Ratliff, and I am a Spanish teacher at Lambert High School here in Forsyth County. Since Spanish is my subject, and that we do lack standardized tests at the state level, and in our case, we don't even have longitudinal data for standardized tests at the district level, I decided to look at data from 9th grade English Language Arts courses. I talked to my team of instructional coaches first about my findings on this matter, and then I wanted to present it again here today at this school board meeting. So I'm interested in RTI, response to intervention, as a process at Lambert. After analyzing this data, I am impressed, and I'm sure that you will be, by our test scores in comparison to the rest of the district, but especially to the state. However, I am still concerned because I still think there's room for improvement. My main goal is to find a way to help the small number of struggling students while continuing to engage and to challenge our high achievers. As a Spanish 2 teacher, where I teach almost the entire freshman class without a distinction, there is no honors, there is no on level, I think that I'm qualified to make these suggestions. Those of us who are Georgia natives more than anyone else, I would argue, know that we are very fortunate with what we have in Forsyth County. One of the demographics that I thought was most interesting is that of our 133 staff members at Lambert, all are considered highly qualified, and that actually is true for the entire school district. That is to say that all staff members have a bachelor's degree once they are issued their contract, or perhaps higher than a bachelor's degree, and everyone is certified in their field. And again, as you can see from these graphs, this has been true for the past 3 years, whereas other systems are struggling to hire anyone and are hiring people without certificates who then have to go through certification. All of our teachers are already qualified, and I think that's pretty amazing. Another amazing piece of data, as we hear frequently at our school, because I know Dr. Davison is very proud of this, our graduation rate is at 98.7%, and as you can see, it has fluctuated some over the past several years, but statewide the graduation rate is 79.2%, so 98.7% is pretty awesome. We truly work in a very special place, especially when you consider that our school is both public, non-charter, and also non-magnet. There are some other pieces of data that I would like to share with you today in terms of demographics before showing you the EOC data that I looked at. First, I think this is most relevant to test scores, or usually it is linked closely to test scores because if students are well cared for at home, then they have less to worry about at school and usually are more focused. So our free and reduced lunch population at Lambert this past school year was at a 4.97%. In previous years, it was a little over 5. So you can see that we are very high socioeconomic status. Next, I'd like to show you some data about the gifted program at Lambert High School. You can see that we have many students who qualify for the gifted program. This usually means that the students are high achieving. It also means that we do need to work harder to challenge them, which relates to what I'd like to show you at the end with our EOC data. So for 2016, for this most recent school year, we had 28.91% served and 29.56% eligible for gifted services. Next, I would like to show you some race and ethnicity data. So this is from the past 3 years of enrollment at Lambert High School. I'm going to focus on just our most recent year. So of the school population of 2,933, you can see that the highest percentage were self-identified as white, and there were 2,038 of those children this past year who said their race was white. For the test that we are looking at, This was the freshman English Language Arts course. So for the freshman class, for the last year that we have a record of testing for 2014 was at 704, and 506 of those were white. And here is the total number. Here is the highest percentage number. Our English for speakers of other languages or English language learner population is pretty low at Lambert. Of this freshman class that tested, the 704 students the last year that tested, only 5 were considered English language learners. None that year were even monitored like former program members. So we had a very low population for that. Finally, before looking at the data for the test itself, I would like to show you the data for special education and 504 services. And I included both of these in the same graph because although 504 services can be for health concerns, for example, diabetes, they can also be health concerns that are things like ADHD, and sometimes are, and to me, they are still a plan from the school. They're providing a student with a support team, much like an IEP for special education services does, and that is what I would like to talk about with our test data. So for the last year of test data, of the 704 students that took the test, 46 were identified as receiving special education services from the school, and 2 of those 704 students were ones that had 504 plans from the school. So now that we've talked about some of the demographics from the data from these 4 years of the 9th grade English Language Arts end of course tests, we can see that Lambert is doing pretty well. Even on our own, I will show you the comparison between the district and state data momentarily, but this is very impressive to me. I'd like to focus right now just on the students who are not meeting expectations. So we only have, for the years that we have results from, we have 2% not meeting expectations in this year, then 1%, 2%, and again 1%. And then exceeds expectations is much higher. We're in the high 70s. We have very few students who are being left behind, if I can borrow that phrase. And here is data comparing Lambert, the blue line, to the district data, the pink or red line, and then the state data, the green line. You can see that the percentage of students meeting or exceeding proficiency for this end of course test in 9th grade English Language Arts is much higher for Lambert than the state, and even higher for our individual school than it is for the district. While the state has proficiency ranges in the 80%, in the 80s, we are up almost at 100%. So that brings us to how do we serve these students, this 1 to 2% of the students who are not at proficiency. How do we serve them without losing our students who are meeting, or especially our students who are already exceeding? Let's look at the percentage of students at does not meet in terms of who was regular education versus who was not. We see here that there are some students who did not meet expectations who were regular education students. So for years 1, 2, and 3, 1% of the students who did not meet expectations were general education students, meaning that they did not receive additional help from the school. There was no IEP for them, there was no 504 plan, there were no support meetings for those students. So to help these students while maintaining the same rigorous coursework that is encouraging our 76% of students who are exceeding expectations, I propose that we put these struggling students into our RTI program by giving them a support team, which is one of the things that I believe we do best at Lambert High School. One of the best features about Lambert is our Lunch and Learn program, where students have a full 49-minute period for lunch. During this time, students have the opportunity to go to tutoring rooms for their classes or to socialize with their friends. In addition to these fun and get ahead programs, we also have an RTI room during lunch hours. In the RTI room, students who have already been identified go to work on study skills like organization and goal setting. As the district and state observers noted this past year, our program model was quite successful. Since this is already in place, I suggest that we put our students who do not meet expectations into this room at least once a week. By insisting that these students use their extended lunchtime for help instead of having teachers dumb down content or backtrack constantly for the few students who are struggling, this would provide a good reteaching and reorganizing opportunity. I think that this could really raise the low-performing students to a higher level faster. It would also benefit other students in the class who are already meeting the expectations so that they can continue to exceed and expand upon what they already know. Now I would like to ask you about what questions or suggestions you have. I would like to invite you to Lambert if you have not already seen our Lunch and Learn programs. And I'd like to also start by maybe asking for more information on the number of teachers that we have at our school who are willing to work in the RTI room. I realize that this would cause some shuffling of duty stations, but I think that it could be worth it, and that's a discussion that we should have.